Because the inference in a generalization depends on the examples being representative of the larger population, we need to focus in our questions about the inference on those examples' representativeness. And so, one of the questions that we need to ask is, are the examples truly representative of the larger population? And this is a question that's being asked a lot about polling, because the traditional method of developing polls was to use landline telephone questionnaires. The problem with that is a lot of people have gone away from landlines, so they're not using those phones, which means that they're not as accessible when it comes to polling. And if your poll relies solely on landline phones now, it's likely to not get a very representative sample of the population, because most of the people who still have landlines tend to be older. So polling that focuses on the landline population will disregard younger members of the population. And so those polls are likely to not be very representative of the larger population, because they ignore a major subset of it. Another question is, are there sufficient examples? So let's look at my use of Colorado and Washington as examples that America wants to legalize marijuana. Just because those two states have done it, that doesn't mean that all of America wants to legalize marijuana. I've only taken 2 out of the 50 states. So someone could say, hey, this really doesn't add up. We don't have a sufficient number of examples. And then the third question is, are there counter examples? We asked about sign arguments, are there counter signs? For generalizations, we ask, are there counter examples? And the reason we do this is that if there are examples that suggest the opposite of what we've argued in the generalization, then maybe that generalization really isn't as strong as it should be. So with regard to polling, if we get a collection of polls that say that candidate A is going to win, but we then get another collection of polls saying that candidate B is going to win, now we look at those generalizations about candidate A and say, well, we may have some work to do in actually sorting this out.